So the very first thing that I want to cover today is the goal. And the goal is to learn how Dubsado scheduler templates sync with external connected calendars and how all of that works. So the very first thing I want to explain is how our Dubsado calendar system works. Now, if you are on Instagram a good amount of time, you've probably seen some memes that have an Instagram versus reality idea to them. And I wanted to use this because it really relates to how Dubsado uses a calendar system. So if you're not familiar on Instagram, there's a meme that's going around, and it's been going around for a while, that is what Instagram looks like, what your Instagram feed looks like versus what reality is. And usually it is, on the left-hand side, it's always a well done picture, well put together. Whoever's on that picture is well groomed. The outfits are always on point. And then the reality of it is 99% of the time when you're walking around, it looks more like the picture on the right. And so I wanted to start off this webinar to kind of explain to you how Dubsado's calendar system actually works. And a lot of people, when they're signing up for Dubsado, they really believe that Dubsado is what connects directly to your calendar. And so that's the myth that people have, is that we as Dubsado are the ones that are connecting directly to your calendar. But in reality, we're actually using a third party to connect things to your calendar. So it's not the Dubsado directly to your calendar. And so in Dubsado, there's a lot of things that you can manipulate to have it look on your calendar the way you want it to. We're actually using a third party called Chronify, and Dubsado links up to that platform, and then it connects to your calendar. So there's a middleman that's actually there that's putting things onto your calendar. It's not directly coming from Dubsado. So we'll talk about that here just a little bit more and how that connects. But that's kind of a big misunderstanding of how Dubsado works with the external calendar. There's actually a middleman that's in there. And that's the first point that I have here, that we don't directly sync up with your external calendar. There's a middle platform that's actually putting it onto your calendar. Because we use a third party for calendar syncing, there's not a way to control each feature within our platform as it exports out to each user's individual calendar. It may look different than your neighbor's. So with Chronify links up with a lot of the major calendar systems. So Google Calendar, Microsoft Outlook, and we'll talk about that here in a second and actually connecting it. But in Dubsado here, it's important to know that how someone else is using their calendar, if you're using a different platform or a different calendar system, Chronify might put it onto that person's calendar differently than it would be maybe on a Google Calendar. So it's important to know that it's not coming from Dubsado, it's actually Chronify putting that onto your actual calendar. And so the next thing that I want to talk about is actually importing your calendar into Dubsado. So how it works is this, and I'll actually break this down in Dubsado so you can see. Once you link up your calendar in Dubsado, it's going to look at the external calendars or the sub calendars that you have inside of your calendar and put that on Dubsado. So what does that mean? When you link up your calendar and you'll choose what calendar you want to bring in, it's going to look at everything that's underneath there. So inside of anybody's calendar, you most likely have sub-calendars or subcategories that are inside of your external calendar. Dubsado can read all of those individual calendars and bring all those in as separate sub-calendars. So let me jump over to Dubsado here and we'll kind of talk through this. So let me do this actually. I'm going to revoke these calendars here so I can actually show you how it gets brought in. Let me pull these back here and we'll actually sync this up so you can see. Now, underneath the calendar section in Dubsado, over on the right-hand side is the calendar settings area. And this is where you can import your calendar. If we click on that, it's going to take you to an area here that says Sync Calendar. And when you click Sync Calendar, it's going to bring up Chronify. And this is what we were talking about earlier, where it's actually having you go to their platform where you can sync up your calendar. So technically at this point, we're technically leaving Dubsado and we're going into Chronify to sync up the calendar that we need to. Now, I won't go through all of these different calendars and go through all of the different settings that you have to set for all of them. Those are things that you'll probably need to troubleshoot on your own as far as what the email is and all of that. I know with iCloud, you have to set up an app-specific password to get things to work. So there's a lot of different settings that you would probably need to look into that calendar's specific settings that you need to have. But what you'll do at this point is you'll pick the calendar that you're currently using. I use Google for mine, and so that's the one that I'm going to use today. So once you click this into Google and agree to Chronify's terms, once you link your Google account, you're actually going to select the email that you want to use to link up your calendar. So you're only syncing up one email. And that's one thing that you need to know when you're syncing up your calendars is that you're not syncing up. If you have Google Suite and you have 5 or 6 different emails in that Google Suite, you're only picking one of those emails that you're using to bring it over. And that's a very important piece, that once you sync this up, it's actually going to be one email bringing in the calendar from that email. So what that means is now once I have synced up my calendar and I go back to my calendar settings, now I have all of my sub calendars that are in that email now are being brought in. So if we go back to my particular spot on the outline here, this is what is actually happening, is that in my Google Calendar, I have all of these sub calendars and I have the different ones selected that I am using on my Dubsado calendar or on my Google Calendar. Once I sync it up in Dubsado, now you have the ability to go in and you can see all of those sub calendars have now been brought into Dubsado. From this standpoint, now you can control which one of these sub calendars you're actually going to bring in and also export out to. So let me explain what that means. Out of these 5, let's say that I want to bring in my one-on-one sessions. Now, this is actually real life and how my calendar actually works. Though when I was creating this webinar, I thought the only way to actually truly explain how this is going to work is to be able to show you how it would work with myself if I was using it, since we're using external calendars. So in my particular Google Calendar, I have a separate calendar that is only for my one-on-one sessions that I have. If I click link on this particular calendar, it's going to give me the ability to either import those items into Dubsado, and I can also choose that once something gets created in Dubsado, it can export out to that calendar. So that's also important. And as we continue through this page, I'll explain the benefits and how you should think about using this. So I'm just going to right now at the moment import this calendar in. So when I import this, it's going to go through and it's going to sync up everything that is on that external calendar. And as you can see, it brought all of my one-on-one appointments into Dubsado here. So anything that I'm seeing now in yellow, those are going to be everything that is on only my one-on-one sessions. Now I have 4 other sub calendars that have different things on them, but right now I'm only importing my one-on-one sessions and that's it. So when you are bringing in your calendar and you have these sub calendars to choose from, you have to think about, what do I want to separate in my sub calendar area so that I have the ability to turn on and off certain things in Dubsado. This might mean that you need to rework your calendar system. If you have everything going onto one sub calendar and that's all you have, you don't have any variety of how you're breaking down your different appointment types, it could mean that you're bringing in everything, your personal appointments, every single type of session, every single type of appointment is all going to be on one calendar. So it might mean that you have to go in and restructure how you're doing your calendar organization. Maybe you don't have any calendar organization right now, and this is a great time to go in and do that. So now I'm only bringing in one-on-one sessions. Now, what else I can do, let's say that for my webinars, because my webinars, I do webinars for other communities. I do webinars here for the Dubsado community. And so I have that on a separate calendar. So now if I click link calendar here, again, I can do the exact same thing. I can only bring in what's on that specific sub calendar. So I can click that. That's going to link up, and I only have a few things on there as far as my external webinars that I'm doing right now. So there's not too many events there. But now I have both of those being imported. So what you want to do is decide from your sub calendars which ones are important to bring in that you want Dubsado to look at. And we'll tie this into the scheduler in just a little bit. Now I want to talk about exporting and the importance of exporting. On your Dubsado calendars, once you've brought those in, now you need to decide which calendar in your external calendar you want Dubsado events to go to. And I want to take this time to kind of highlight an important thing that I've seen a lot of people write into chat about or ask questions on calls, is that they've noticed a lot of duplicates that are being created on their external calendar. And it has to do with your calendar settings here. Once you have this imported and you have the different appointments that you want being brought in, now you need to choose which calendar anything that's getting created in Dubsado goes out to. So what that means is I can choose from any one that of the calendars that are being brought in, which one I want to export out to. So let's take the one-on-one sessions. If I click this here and I click export to this calendar, what that means is all of the different events that are getting created in Dubsado are going to go onto whatever calendar I'm clicking export to. So if I do this and I click save, and it exports out those Dubsado events to my one-on-one session calendar in my Google Calendar, then it's all going to go to one calendar in my Google, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense on how that's syncing up. The problem that people run into is they turn on export on all of their calendars. So what that means is if you have in, let's say in my Google Calendar where I have all of these different types of sub calendars, when I create something in Dubsado, let's say someone books an appointment with me, that appointment is going to go onto all of my sub calendars. So when you see that there's 2, 3, 4 of the same type of appointment, it's because you have export onto all of your calendars. The best practice is to only have it sync up to one calendar. Once it's in your Google or in your outside calendar that you're using, then you could switch it and change which actual calendar it's being synced to. But just to get it onto your calendar, to prevent duplicates from piling up on your calendar, you should only choose one that you want to export it out to, unless there are situations where you might want it to go to different ones. If you are if let's say that one of your imported calendars is for you and another imported calendar is for technically somebody else that's being brought in and you want it to go on to both, that would be a special circumstance. But typically you're only going to want that to export out to one, because if you have it for all of them, then it's going to create that appointment on all of those sub calendars. And that's where you get those duplicates that start to pile up. So typically, and I would say most of the time, again, this is kind of just speaking to the 80%, is that you're going to probably have import on all of them because you want to bring those into Dubsado. But as far as exporting, you really only want it to be on one because you don't want those duplicates to come through. So that's how you can adjust your settings on what's actually being brought in and also what's being sent out from Dubsado. So let's jump back over to the outline here. And just to kind of break this down so that you understand, you're only able to sync one umbrella calendar under one email address to kind of wrap that up. So you can choose from Google or iCal or Microsoft Office 365, whatever calendar system you have, you can choose that and choose an email address that you're going to bring in. And then once you brought that in, you have the ability to individually sync up your sub calendars once those have been brought into the system. So hopefully that makes sense on the transition between your outside calendar and having that being brought into Dubsado as well as exporting out. Now, let's talk about once you have an appointment created in Dubsado, now what does that look like on the outside? So we talked about bringing those in. Now let's talk about what happens when it's brought out. So exporting things to your external calendar. Once you've created an appointment in Dubsado, and we're going to be talking about booking appointments next week and actually scheduling those and how you can schedule those and all the different ways to do that. But once you have an appointment on your calendar, let me bring up this picture here. What it's going to do is it will create your appointment on the calendar, the sub calendar that you're exporting out to. So in my Google Calendar, red is my one-on-one session. So it went to that specific sub calendar. It brings in the location. So if you have location being used on your scheduler templates, it brings that in. It brings in the client name, email, and phone number. So it will bring in those three specific things into your calendar. Right now, that's all that's being brought into your external calendar. I do believe that our development team is working on ways to enhance that so that we have the ability to bring in other information. But right now, those are the three items that are being brought in on your external calendar is name, email, and phone, and also the location as well. So once that's on your calendar, and just to kind of a little side caveat with that, a lot of people might not see that information being brought in on their calendar. And the reason for that is because you're not having a project created with your bookings. And when people are booking with you, you're not getting a project created. So let me take a quick second here to explain how you can make sure that that information is being brought onto your external calendar. This is going to highlight a little bit about what Sam talked about in our very first session about getting leads into Dubsado. If we go to a scheduler template, we're going to transition here and go to a scheduler. And I have the same scheduler templates that I had created from our session last week. If you are using a scheduler template and it is front facing on your website, meaning that you're publicly sharing this, whether you're embedding it on your website, whether you're sending out a direct link. If you are having someone fill out a scheduler template using this method, where it's embedded on your website, or you're just sending this direct link out to somebody, if you do not have a lead capture form attached to this scheduler template, it's not going to collect all that data and feed it into your external calendar. The only way to do that is to have a project get created, which is what you want to have happen. Very few reasons you would want to have someone book an appointment with you and not have a project get created, because the whole point of speaking with somebody is to speak with them, nourish that lead, and then eventually turn it into a booked job. And you want your workflows to kick in. You want to have emails get sent out after the appointment, maybe send out a proposal. All of those different pieces that you want to do after that appointment's over, you have to have a project in place in order to make that happen. So if you're using this method, anything that's public facing where you're sending it through a text, or you have this link posted on your LinkedIn or Instagram or embedded, you want to make sure in the advanced tab that you have a lead capture form or a public proposal. We'll get into more of that next week, but you want to make sure that you have a lead capture form attached to your scheduler so that a project gets created. And that's how you can have that information get pulled into your external calendar. So if it's public facing, just make sure you have a lead capture form or public proposal in this section so that a project gets created, and then you can continue to nurture your lead inside the project, have workflows run, send out contracts, invoices, all that good stuff. So that's going to be how you can get that information to generate. If you're not seeing that, it's probably because you're having people book appointments with you through your website or sending out that consultation scheduler, and you don't have any forms attached to it. So that contact is just going in your address book and it's just showing up on your calendar, but there's no project information that's getting generated. So that's an important piece there. I'm not sure if anyone has experienced that, but that's why you need that lead capture form to attach to your scheduler. The appointment will export out to the calendars that you have exported. This can lead to duplications of the same event on multiple calendars. So same thing as I was saying, make sure that in your calendar settings, you only have the export onto the calendars that you want it to go out to. And now we'll talk about how this looks as far as your Dubsado calendar. So in Dubsado, let me jump back over to the calendar here. We'll pull this up and we'll kind of talk about the calendar here. So in Dubsado, as far as calendar colors, we get this question a lot is, can you customize the calendar colors in Dubsado? At the moment, you're not able to, but this has been a highly requested feature and our development team is working on that to be able to allow you to customize and color code your calendar. So what I have right now for you on this webinar is to explain the different calendar colors so that you're familiar with what is showing up on your calendar. So in Dubsado, green is going to be appointments that are created using the Dubsado scheduler. So since we're in the middle of this scheduler workshop, we're going to be talking about those green appointments and you'll be seeing those on your calendar. So if someone is booking with you inside of Dubsado, they have, booked with you through the website, whether it's embedded, but they're using a Dubsado scheduler. You can also create appointments without using the Dubsado scheduler. But since we're talking about that as far as the workshop series, we're assuming that you're using a Dubsado scheduler template. But those are going to be green. Black is going to be lead projects. So any project that is in your lead phase of things, in your lead statuses, those are going to be black. Anything that is blue is going to be booked jobs that you have. So those are going to be job projects, meaning that they're in the job status. So that's how you can differentiate between what are my lead projects, what are my job projects. Anything that's yellow. So on my calendar, since I'm bringing in all of my one-on-one appointments that I have, those are going to show up as yellow. And that's going to be anything that's coming in from an external calendar. So in my settings, any calendars that I have here that are being synced up and brought in, those are going to be yellow. And so a lot of people have had questions about that. They want to be able to differentiate. That will come with calendar colors. When we introduce that feature, you'll be able to change some different things like that. But right now, anything that's being brought in from an external calendar will be yellow or the yellowish orange. And then red, so if you see anything red on your calendar, those are going to be tasks with due dates associated with them. So you can create tasks in Dubsado and put due dates on them, and that will show up on your calendar if it has a due date. And then we have a dark orange that are for payment reminders. So if you've seen anything on your calendar that says invoice number and has invoice payment reminders, those are the reminders that are set to go out to your clients, and that's a dark orange color. So that's our Dubsado calendar color system. So in your calendars, you can see here the same appointment that I booked here for Travis Jones, the 30-minute consultation, it's coming through as green inside Dubsado. So that's how you can see when people are booking with you on a Dubsado scheduler template, is that it's coming through as green. So I wanted to make sure that I showed you guys how it would look externally. So when someone books an appointment, this is the information that's coming through, as well as what does it look like in Dubsado. And if we go to my calendar here, we'll just jump back to the calendar and we'll open up this appointment. Here's the information from that particular appointment. Now, as far as rescheduling, canceling, managing appointments, that's all going to be talked about next week. So if you do have questions on rescheduling, canceling, how do you manage appointments, that's all going to be on our booking appointments in Dubsado webinar next week. So make sure to tune in there. But this is going to pull in location information, which project. If you want to go in and put a description, you can add that in there so you can have that in Dubsado, but that's how it's going to look once you have an appointment booked in the system there. Perfect. So let's continue to move through here. Now we're going to talk about scheduler templates and how that works with the calendar. So a lot of the first half of this webinar was talking about just importing your calendar, how it works with importing and exporting. Now let's talk about how the scheduler templates now look at that calendar. So on here with your scheduler templates, every template you create in Dubsado can have its own set of parameters and availability. We talked about that last week, how each template can have its own availability. It could have its own confirmation email. It could have its own form attached. It can have its different appointment lengths and names. Every single one of those templates can have its own parameters and availability. However, all of the Dubsado templates will look for the availability on the brand owner's calendar. So let me break down what that means. If I have my 4 different appointment schedulers, so I have my 15-minute, 30-minute, a different 30-minute consultation, that one's an in-person consultation, and then also a paid session. All of these scheduler templates are going to look at this calendar and are going to say, where's their availability? So what that means is if somebody on next Monday books me at 9 a.m., and books a 30-minute consultation, that means that for my paid sessions, no one can book me at that time because it's all reading off of one general calendar. So there are some pros and cons to this. What that means is, from a user perspective, is that in our system currently right now, it can only read the brand owner's availability. So if you have multi-users and you're wanting to use the scheduler to have the availability show for all of your different multi-users, we don't have that capability yet. That's something that's going to be coming down the road, where you'll be able to have different multi-users and show your availability for each one of them. So right now it's just the brand owner's calendar that it's going to look at, these templates will look at. The good side of this is that with your scheduler templates, let's say you're going on vacation, and this is actually something I'm going to talk about in the tips section, which kind of leads us into there. Let's say you're going on vacation and you need to block out a week of time. Because it's all reading off of one calendar, that means that you don't need to go into your scheduler templates and block out the availability on every single one of your templates. All you need to do is go onto your external calendar, make sure that you are looking at one of the calendars that's being imported. So let's say on my one-on-one sessions, I go into that calendar in Google and I just put I'm unavailable for an entire week of time. So I'm on vacation for that entire week. That's going to get imported into Dubsado. And so now the scheduler templates will also read that and say, okay, so-and-so is not going to be available for a week. So if you do have things where you need to manipulate your availability, instead of going through all of your different templates here and changing the availability for each template, because that can get tedious, you can just leave your scheduler templates as they are and just put something on your external calendar. When that is brought in, it will block out all of your calendars because it's all reading the same calendar. So hopefully that makes sense. That's a really great tip for you guys where your availability changes a lot. You can just make sure that your external calendar is matching your availability instead of changing the availability on all of these. Or if you have a dentist appointment, vacations, anything like that that's being brought in, all of these scheduler templates read the same calendar. So you don't have to worry about changing the availability per template, because that can get extremely tedious, especially if you have 10, 12 different appointment types. Then you would have to go in and change the parameters on each one of those. If you need to make adjustments to an appointment on your calendar, always edit the event where it originated. So let me explain what that means here. If you have, let's say in my calendar, we'll just jump back over there. If I need to make changes to one of my one-on-one sessions that I have booked, let's say, what that means is if I need to make a change on there, I need to go to Google Calendar and make those changes for it to get reflected in Dubsado. I'm not able to click into these events that are on my calendar that are being imported and make changes here. Same as vice versa. If you want to change something that's being sent to your Google Calendar from Dubsado, you want to make those changes in Dubsado. If you want to delete an appointment, cancel it or just delete it. If you want to edit an appointment, always go to where that appointment originated to have the least amount of kind of confusion on the calendars reading each other. So if it originated in your external calendar, go there and make those changes, and then it will reflect in Dubsado. Same thing, vice versa. Make the change in a Dubsado created appointment, and then that will reflect in your external calendar. So that's how you can decide how the appointments will be edited and changed. It should always start where it originated. So that is how the Dubsado scheduler works. There's a lot of things that people may need with our system, and that's something that we're working on to increase the, flexibility for how our scheduler works, the usability for people who may have 6 different employees and need to use external calendars and have all of that work for their multi-users. One thing I will say is that with our one-on-one calls that we have, myself and my 2 other colleagues, right now, we do actually get this question a lot. So before I kind of wrap everything up, I kind of wanted to explain that even with us inside of Dubsado, we're still using Calendly right now for our external calls that we have with people, just because Dubsado as a company, we're working on making our calendar situation and with our scheduler templates just more flexible for people who have multiple users and things like that. So just be patient with us. We're working to make that so you can get rid of a lot of the third-party schedulers that you have. But for the time being, if you need some of those other types of features like text messaging, or if you need multi-user capability, you can use your third-party platform at the moment. And then as we continue to grow and beef up our scheduler template service, then you can make that transition over. So hopefully that helps you guys out and helps you see how our calendar system works as far as importing them in, exporting things out, and how the scheduler looks at that calendar and then determines when availability is there. And there are some other things. One other thing that I'll mention that's actually not on the outline here is when it comes to if you're available or busy. So let me talk about that here really quickly. If you are bringing in appointments or events from your external calendar that you are marked as busy on that external calendar, some people say available, some people say free. There's a lot of different terms that different calendar systems use to differentiate between if you're available or free or busy. But if it's marked as busy on your external calendar and you're bringing that in, it will be marked as busy when your scheduler templates are trying to look at it. If it's marked as available on your external calendar, so for example, let's say that you have a second cousin's relative's birthday party that you're not really jazzed about to go to, and you still want to be able to accept appointments. Even just in case someone wants to book an appointment with you, you might have a scapegoat and say, oh, I can't make it. I actually have an appointment, so I'm not available. What you can do is on that birthday party, if it's on your external calendar and you mark it as available, don't tell your family, but if it's marked as available and you bring that into Dubsado, our scheduler templates read that you're still available even though it's on your calendar. So definitely when you are bringing in external events, always make sure to check, am I marked as busy or am I marked as available when it's being brought in? Because whatever it is on the external side of things, that's what it's going to be when it's being brought in. So definitely pay attention to that because our scheduler templates can see if you're marked as available or busy in your external calendar. So you can use that to kind of manipulate different events, and that should help you as far as opening up the correct availability inside of your scheduler templates.